You weren't born in a hospital. You were born on a dirt floor in a tin shack that floods every monsoon season. Sitakunda, Bangladesh. The air here smells like rust, diesel, and something chemical you can't name, but your lungs already know. Your mother is 16. Your father is a ghost who left before you could crawl. Welcome to life. Your first toy is a bolt. Not a plastic one from a store. A real steel bolt, crusted with oil, that your older brother pulled from the carcass of a dead Greek freighter. You chew on it like a teething ring. The rust tastes like blood. By the time you are 5, you already know what a dead ship looks like. The beach outside your shack is not a beach. It is a graveyard. Stretching for miles, massive steel skeletons of oil tankers, cargo ships, and container vessels sit half buried in the mud like beached whales made of iron. Men swarm over them like ants, cutting them apart with fire. The sound never stops. The grinding, the hissing of torches, the screaming of metal being torn open. This is the soundtrack of your childhood.
You don't go to school. School costs money, and money means food, and food means you need to work.
At 8 years old, you get your first job, runner. You carry buckets of bolts, drag cables through mud, and sprint across the yard delivering messages to foremen who will slap you if you're too slow. Your pay is 50 taka a day. That is less than 50 cents. Your hands bleed every night. You wrap them in scraps of old cloth and sleep on a floor shared with 11 other boys. Most of them are your age, some are younger. None of them have fathers either.
At 12, you get promoted. Now you are a helper to a cutter.
This is where the real nightmare begins. Your job is to stand next to a man with an oxyacetylene torch as he slices through steel plates that are 2 inches thick. The flame burns at 5,700 degrees Fahrenheit. That is hotter than lava. Your protection? A pair of rubber flip-flops and a cotton shirt. No gloves, no goggles, no helmet, no mask. The cutter squints through the blinding white light of the torch. Sparks fly into your face like angry fireflies. You flinch, but you don't move. If you move, the foreman docks your pay. The steel plate you are standing under weighs 5 tons. It is held in place by 2 rusty cables and a prayer. When the cutter finishes his line, the plate is supposed to fall away from you. Supposed to. Last month, a plate fell the wrong way and crushed a boy named Rafiq. He was 14. They pulled his body out with a crowbar and a rope. Nobody stopped working. The foreman said, "Finish the shift." So they did.
You breathe in everything.
The torch doesn't just cut steel. It vaporizes 40 years of paint, insulation, fuel residue, and poison. Every ship that comes to this beach is a floating toxic waste dump that rich countries are too scared to deal with themselves. The paint contains lead, cadmium, and chromium. The insulation is asbestos. Not a little bit. An average ship carries 7 tons of asbestos packed between the walls and wrapped around the pipes in the engine room. When the torch hits it, the asbestos explodes into invisible fibers that hang in the air like dust you cannot see. You breathe them in every single day. They burrow into your lungs and build scar tissue that will slowly suffocate you over the next 20 years. Mesothelioma, asbestosis, lung cancer. The names don't matter because you will never hear them. There are no doctors here. There is a clinic run by the Shipyard Owners Association. It can handle a bandage. For anything serious, you need to get to the hospital in Chittagong City, 20 kilometers away. Many men die in the back of a rickshaw on that road, bleeding out from a severed artery or choking on their own lungs.
The ships come from everywhere. Europe, Japan, South Korea, Greece.
When a shipping company decides a vessel is too old, too rusted, too expensive to maintain, they sell it to a middleman called a cash buyer. The cash buyer sails the ship to international waters, switches the flag to some country that doesn't ask questions, and then drives it full speed onto this beach in Bangladesh during high tide. Beaching. The ship hits the sand at full power and lodges itself into the mud. Now it belongs to the yard. A single ship can be worth $5 to $8 million in scrap steel. The profit margin for the yard owner is roughly $1 million per ship, earned in 3 to 4 months. You, the guy actually tearing it apart with your bare hands, you earn about $2 to $3 a day. That is the economics. The ship might be a former oil tanker that carried crude for 30 years. Its fuel tanks were never properly cleaned. Residual petroleum gases collect in the lower compartments like invisible bombs. One spark from your torch in the wrong pocket of trapped vapor, and the compartment detonates. This is how most of the explosions happen. The yard doesn't test for gas. There is no gas-free certificate. There is no ventilation. You just cut and hope. Your morning starts at 5:30. You walk to the yard in the dark, stepping over puddles of oil and chemical runoff that turns the sand black and purple. The tide brings in a new layer of filth every night. The mud you walk through is laced with arsenic, mercury, and polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs. When those get heated by a torch, they release dioxins, some of the most toxic chemicals ever created. The dioxins seep into the soil. The soil feeds the rice paddies. The rice feeds your family. You are literally eating the poison you breathe at work. Your breakfast is rice and dal if you are lucky. Sometimes just rice with salt. You eat squatting in the shadow of a dead container ship, surrounded by twisted metal, puddles of oil, and the smell of burning paint. Then the whistle blows. You climb. No ladder, no harness, no rope. You free climb the hull of a ship that rises 60 feet above the beach. The hull is slick with algae, oil, and moisture. Your flip-flops grip nothing. One slip, and you fall 60 feet onto concrete hard sand littered with jagged scrap metal. Today's ship is a Greek oil tanker, 300 meters long, 40,000 tons of dead weight. It has been sitting on this beach for 2 weeks, and the upper decks have already been stripped. Now you go deeper, into the belly, the engine room. This is the worst place in any ship. It is a maze of pipes, valves, boilers, and turbines, all wrapped in asbestos lagging. The air is thick, hot, and smells like a mix of diesel fuel and rotting rubber. There is no light. You work by the glow of your torch. Shadows dance on the walls like demons. The floor is slick with oil and bilge water, a toxic soup of petroleum, heavy metals, and sewage that has been stewing in the bottom of this ship for decades. You slip on it constantly. Your feet are always wet, always black. The steel walls amplify every sound. When another cutter fires his torch 2 decks above you, it sounds like a jet engine is screaming inside your skull. Communication is impossible. You work by hand signals and instinct. If something goes wrong down here, no one hears you scream. You are cutting a pipe that runs along the ceiling. The torch hisses blue-white. The metal glows orange, then red, then splits apart, releasing a shower of sparks that rain down on your arms and neck. Small burns. You have dozens of them. They heal into raised pink scars that cover your forearms like a topographic map of pain. Your coworkers call them chittagong tattoos. Every cutter has them. But the pipe is wrapped in asbestos cloth. When your torch hits the wrapping, it doesn't burn clean. It smolders and releases a cloud of microscopic fibers that drift through the engine room like invisible snow. You don't even notice anymore. 10 years of breathing this air and you have a permanent cough that tastes like copper. You spit brown phlegm every morning. Your chest rattles when you breathe deep. But you keep cutting because stopping means no pay. And no pay means your mother and your little sister don't eat tonight. That is the math. Your lungs for their dinner. A whistle signals lunch. 30 minutes. You eat sitting on a pile of scrap with oil-stained hands. The dal has grit in it. Always grit. Sand, metal dust, something. You drink water from a communal jug that hasn't been cleaned in weeks. After lunch, you were sent to a different section, the fuel tank. This is the kill zone. The foreman says the tank was cleaned. The foreman is a liar. Cleaning a fuel tank properly requires ventilation equipment, gas detectors, and chemical solvents that the yard doesn't own and wouldn't buy if they did. What they do is send a boy in with a bucket and a rag to wipe down the walls. Then they declare it clean. You climb down into the tank through a manhole barely wide enough for your shoulders. The air is thick and sweet, like gasoline but heavier. Your head swims. That sweetness is petroleum vapor, and it is explosive at concentrations as low as 1%. Your torch produces open flame. You know this could kill you. Everyone knows. 2 months ago, a fuel tank on a Pakistani bulk carrier exploded and killed 6 men instantly. Their bodies were found welded to the walls by the heat. You heard the blast from your yard, half a mile away. The ground shook. You cut anyway, because the foreman said cut, because your family needs to eat, because there is nowhere else to go. The torch touches steel and the world holds its breath. Nothing happens. Today you are lucky. But luck is a currency that runs out fast on this beach. You work until 6 in the evening, 12 hours. Sometimes 14 if a deadline is tight or a ship needs to be cleared before the next one arrives. You climb out of the hull covered in soot, oil, and burn marks. Your lungs ache. Your back is a solid knot of pain from crouching in compartments designed for pipes, not people. You walk home in the dark, the same oily path, the same chemical puddles. Your shack has no electricity tonight. The generator is broken again. You eat cold rice by candlelight and try not to cough too hard because it scares your sister. She is 9. She asks when you will take her to Dhaka. You say soon. You have been saying soon for 4 years.
The money. Let's talk about the money.
You earn 70 to 100 taka per day. That is roughly 70 cents to $1. The foremen earn more. The yard owners are millionaires. Some of them own 30, 40 yards. They drive Mercedes through streets where their workers walk barefoot. There is no written contract, no insurance, no pension, no overtime pay. If you get hurt, the yard might pay for a rickshaw to the hospital. Might. If the injury is obviously their fault, and witnesses are present, and the foreman is in a generous mood. Usually they give you a few hundred taka and tell you to go home. A man named Kamal lost his right hand to a falling plate 2 years ago. The yard gave him 5,000 taka. That is about $45. For his hand. He went back to the yard 3 months later because he had no other option. Now he works as a sweeper with one hand. The union tried to organize in 2012. The yard owners fired every member and had local police arrest the leaders on trespassing charges. That was the end of the union. You have been doing this for 10 years. You are 22 years old, but your body is 45. Your lungs wheeze. Your back is curved from years of crouching in ship compartments. You have burn scars on 60% of your arms. 3 of your fingers on your left hand are crooked from breaks that were never set by a doctor. Your eyesight is deteriorating from years of staring at torch flame without goggles. You cough every morning and every night. The brown phlegm is getting darker. Some days there's blood. You ignore it because there is no alternative. The men who came before you, the ones who started cutting in the 90s, they are dead or dying now. Lung disease, cancer, organ failure from heavy metal poisoning. The average shipbreaker in Bangladesh does not live past 50. Most don't make it to 45. You have never been to a doctor in your life. You treat cuts with kerosene and burns with toothpaste because that is what your mother taught you. The ships keep coming. Bigger now. Meaner. Container ships the size of apartment buildings. Offshore rigs dripping with drilling chemicals. Ghost ships that sat in port for years, accumulating rust and rats the size of cats. Every ship is its own horror story. Some carry radioactive materials in their instrument panels. Cesium, cobalt, americium. Nobody checks. Nobody knows until a cutter opens a panel and finds a glowing gauge that shouldn't be there. In 2009, a radioactive cobalt source was found in a scrapyard in India that traced back to a broken ship. The steel had already been recycled into construction rebar. Somewhere in a building, people are living inside walls reinforced with radioactive steel from a dead ship. And the beach itself is dying. The mangroves that once lined this coast are gone, poisoned. 25 fish species have vanished from these waters in the last 20 years. The fishermen who used to feed their families from this sea now work in the yards because there is nothing left to catch. The mud is so contaminated that crabs wash up dead on shore. The water turns colors it shouldn't: green, purple, orange. The rice grown near the yards contains arsenic at levels that exceed World Health Organization limits by a factor of 10. You eat that rice every day. You are 25 now. You have a wife, a daughter, another one on the way. Your wife begs you to quit. Go to Dhaka, she says. Work in a garment factory. At least you will have a roof and a contract. But the garment factories pay even less, and the hours are worse, and the buildings collapse too. You saw it on TV. There is no good option. There is only less bad. So you keep cutting. Every morning, the same walk, the same oil, the same toxic air, the same climb up a rusting hull in flip-flops, the same prayer that today is not the day a plate falls on your head, or a fuel tank blows, or your lungs finally give out. Today, you are cutting the stern section of a South Korean container ship. The plate you are working on is thick, corroded, and stubbornly resistant to your torch. You lean in closer, adjusting the flame, increasing the oxygen flow. The steel finally starts to give way, and then you hear it. A groan. Deep, metallic. The entire section above you shifts. The cables holding it are giving way. You have exactly 1.5 seconds to react. You throw yourself sideways, rolling across jagged scrap. The plate crashes down where you were standing half a second ago. The impact shakes the hull and sends a shockwave through your chest. Dust and rust particles fill the air. You can't see. You can't breathe. You lie on the floor of a dead ship, heart hammering, bleeding from a gash on your elbow where you hit a bolt. You are alive. Today, you are alive. You wipe the blood on your shirt and stand up. The foreman shouts down from above, asking why you stopped. Back to work. Pick up the torch. Light the flame. Keep cutting. That is the job. That is the life. One worker dies every single week on this beach. One gets injured every single day. Those aren't activist estimates. Those are the numbers from the Bangladesh Institute of Labor Studies. And those are just the ones they know about. Yards don't report deaths if they can avoid it. Bodies disappear. Families get a small payout and a threat to stay quiet. You wanted to know what the worst job in the world looks like. This is it. No gladiator arena, no pirate ship, no Wild West shootout. Just a man in flip-flops with a blowtorch, tearing apart a floating toxic waste dump on a poison beach for less than $1 an hour, so that the steel can be melted down and turned into the rebar inside the building where you sit right now watching this video. That is the supply chain. That is the circle. The ship carried your goods across the ocean. When it got old, it came here. A man who will never know your name breathed asbestos and risked explosion to turn it into scrap. The scrap became steel. The steel became construction material. The construction material became your world. And the man? He is still on that beach, still coughing, still cutting, still hoping today is not the last day. The yard owners just bought another ship, a retired Norwegian oil tanker, 40 years old, full of asbestos, lead paint, and fuel residue. It hits the beach at high tide tomorrow morning. The whistle will blow at 5:30, and he will walk out there again in his flip-flops with his torch, and he will start cutting. Because that is all there is. Rich countries banned asbestos decades ago. They banned shipbreaking on their own shores because it was too dirty and too dangerous. So they put their dying ships on a boat to Bangladesh, where a 20-year-old kid in sandals rips them apart with his bare hands and a blowtorch on a beach that is slowly killing everything it touches. When those ships were built in European and Japanese shipyards, workers wore full hazmat suits, respirators, and operated million-dollar ventilation systems. When those same ships come here to die, the same asbestos is pulled out by hand, carried on a man's back, and dumped in an open field next to a rice paddy. The European Union passed a regulation in 2013 saying EU-flagged ships can't be scrapped in substandard yards. So the shipping companies reflagged the ships to Palau, Comoros, or Togo, countries that exist on paper and ask no questions. The ship changes its flag like a criminal changes his name, and sails to Bangladesh anyway. The profit stays in Europe. The poison stays here. Your stats. You are 28 years old. You have worked on this beach for 16 years. Ships dismantled with your hands, 47. Co-workers you have watched die, 11. Co-workers you have watched get crippled, too many to count. Burns on your body, hundreds. Broken bones, 4. Fingers that work properly, 7 out of 10. Days of sick leave taken, 0. Money saved, none. Children, 2 daughters. Life expectancy based on your occupation and toxic exposure, 43 years if you are lucky. You earn roughly $300 a year doing one of the most dangerous jobs ever documented by the International Labor Organization. The ship you just dismantled generated a profit of $1.2 million for the yard owner. Your share of that profit bought your family rice for a month. There is a movie about Chittagong shipbreaking. There are documentaries and news articles. People watch them, feel sad for 10 minutes, then order something from Amazon that will be delivered on a container ship that will one day end up on this beach. And a man just like you will cut it apart. And no one will remember his name. You are sitting in your chair, watching a screen, comfortable. Your biggest problem today might be traffic, or a meeting, or a slow internet connection. He is standing on a toxic beach in flip-flops, cutting through steel with a flame hotter than lava, breathing cancer, dodging 5-ton plates, and feeding his family on $1 a day. You are not the same, but you are connected. Every piece of steel in your world passed through hands like his. Remember that next time you look at a building, a bridge, a car. Somebody's lungs paid for it.
If this story hits you, drop a like, subscribe. We go where nobody else dares to dig. Next time, the coal mines of Jhatia, India, where the ground has been on fire for over 100 years, and miners crawl into burning tunnels that could collapse at any second. Or the sulfur carriers of Kawah Ijen, Indonesia, hauling pure volcanic poison up the rim of an active crater for $5 a day. The worst jobs on Earth are not in your history books. They are happening right now, and we are going to show you every single one. Subscribe so you don't miss it.